Peace to the gods, peace to the earths, and all of the righteous families of the planet. It's your big brother Fahiym back once again, aka Day Son of God, out here in beautiful Georgia, the beautiful state of Georgia. You know what I'm saying? It's getting kind of dark out here, and I'm out here sitting with the God. You know what I'm saying? He just, I pulled up on the God to build with him a little bit about, just Tariq Nasheed's film, you know what I'm saying? This hip hop movie, a documentary basically that he has that, it got everybody in the uproar right now. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm here with the God. Introduce yourself, God. You done been on the channel before, but introduce yourself,
peace
God.
To the gods, Eternal Bilal. Me and Day-Son grew up together. We speak a lot of high metaphysics, and here we are speaking of the metaphysics of hip-hop, when it began, its inception, who started it, what year did it start? Did it really start in the Bronx?
Yeah.
Did Brooklyn and Queens have more of an impact? Who knows? Did Kool Herc really start it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I have people in Queens that's certified OGs that will rival that. I don't know, but either way, we're here to speak on it.
Yeah. And I would say within the last, maybe with me, like in the last 3 years, I would say I've probably been building with brothers that the whole narrative is switched because, growing up in New York, and, we both from Brooklyn, New York, Coney Island, you know what I'm saying? Well, Flatbush too, you know what I'm saying? You was a Flatbush head as well.
East Flatbush.
You know what I'm saying? East Flatbush. But, growing up in New York, like the dynamic back then, from what I could remember, was mostly Black American, or how Tariq Nasheed says, foundational Black American. A lot of Hispanic or other ethnicities didn't really, get involved with the culture until like as we got into the 80s, from what I could remember. You know what I'm saying? Around mid 80s or so, you start hearing a lot of Spanish and West Indian terms and stuff being used in the culture. But recently, the movie, from what I've heard, and this was just recent news too, it got pulled back because of copyright issues or whatever with some of the pictures that the guy Joe Conzo, I think his name is, Spanish dude from out of New York, and he was just saying that it wasn't, the copyright issues or whatever, so they pulled back the film. So some people are saying it's because of the copyright issues, but some people are saying no, it's because they don't want the truth to get out. And also a lot of people, from what I hear, in the Bronx don't want that information to get out too, because for so long we've always been told that Bronx was the foundational place of hip hop. So, what's your thoughts on that though? Just on the movie getting pushed back and, Bronx being the foundation of hip hop and how that narrative is now being somewhat changed today.
DJ Divine is my man. He's from Queens. He's shown me flyers from 73. You've been on the phone with him. He's shown me flyers from 73 with him DJing and Queens having their own narrative of who started hip hop. I spoke to Eli. I spoke to the Spider Twins that I met through DJ Divine. Ralph McDaniels. They all stated the same thing, jeweling me. This is not this is their testimony. They're 65, 68 years old. I'm 49, Brother Fahiym is 51. So they're way older than us. They stated the first time they ever saw breakdancing, this is what they stated, that they said it was Puerto Ricans that started it. Now, I'm not saying that they did. This is their statement in Studio 54. They said they thought a fight broke out and everybody started scattering. And when they looked, it was a bunch of Puerto Ricans doing it. I don't know. I'm not of age to speak on these things. Right. I don't like when, me and D speak about this all the time, I don't like when brothers who are 53 or 54 years and younger are making claims to things that they didn't bear witness to, and if they were alive, you were too young, you wasn't cognizant enough. What's happening is we're all taking different information from elders and we're running with that information. Right. I'm telling you, brothers who were 65, 68, Eli is 68, Ralph McDaniel 65, DJ Divine is 65, and they all gave me the same testimony. Now, it's very interesting because we see a lot of videos of people breakdancing and rhyming in the 30s and 40s. Right. So this film getting pushed back, it's interesting to see who's trying to control this narrative and why. You know, I think everyone played an equal part. I think Foundational Black Americans started it. The West Indians came in later and contributed. I can't mark exactly when because I was so young. I can't remember. All I'm really doing is galvanizing information from people who are in their mid 60s to upper 60s, first generation of hip hop.
Right.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, when you say, you know, that they introduced something, now from, you know, just within the last couple years, just the research and stuff that I've been seeing, and you know, you mentioned about, you know, some of the rappers back in the 1940s, the Pygmy Markham or whatever his name is, or you know, when we talk about West Indian or Jamaican introducing something to hip hop, the question now becomes, what did they introduce? You see what I'm saying? What did they introduce? You know, because, you know, as a youth, you know, growing up in Flatbush, you know, like, you know, we always thought, you know, like what they call it toasting, you know, but we always thought that came from Jamaica.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? With, you know, I-Roy, U-Roy, and some of those DJs back in that time, you know what I'm saying? And when they introducing a new song or whatever, playing a new selection, they'll be like, now in comes the musical selection. In comes the musical this track. I play such and such and such and da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. We always thought that came from Jamaica, but no, it actually didn't, because it was a video that I seen a few months ago where they had Mr. Coxon. Now, Mr. Coxon is one of the known musicians in Jamaica, from, you know, one of the elders.
Sir Coxon.
Right. He said, we got it from Black Americans. And he said not just that, but he said all of our music came from foundational Black Americans, because he said back during the 1950s, you know, some of the workers would go out to the wharf, you know, the boat or whatever, and you know, they would meet, some of the sailors would have like records or whatever, and they would bring them back and sell it, because the only people who had money to buy that back then was like the DJs in the community.
Right.
So they would buy them, and they would have little parties, and they would spin those records, and this was rhythm and blues.
Right.
So they tried to put together their own rhythm and blues, because and then he said in the video, he said, we one day realized we was acting too much like Black Americans. We was doing too much like the Black Americans.
Interesting. I got to see that video.
Yeah. And he said we wanted to create so then they started to play the this is with ska and all of that. He said it was actually, they kind of messed up doing a beat, and he said, well, you know what? We just gonna keep it, and it's gonna be our thing. You know what I'm saying? But he would listen to American DJs over here, and they would be introducing songs. And see, we didn't call it toasting though. We more called it like, you know, jive talk. You know, talking that jive. You know, when you remember back when you used to listen to watch Soul Train, and you would see like, you know, Don Cornelius introducing the song. Now here comes another sound to make you get down, another moon to make you groove, another you know. But that came from us. The sound systems, as you mentioned in that documentary, The Founding Fathers, they showed, you know, with the big sound system, his brothers doing this back in the late 60s, early 70s. So really it brings to the question, what did they bring? They really didn't bring anything. And to be truthful, if we wanted to be technical, Black Americans, we could say we started reggae music 50-50. And that's an argument. That's a legitimate argument with the history that we have now. You know what I'm saying? What's your thoughts on that, though?
I really got to see that video with Sir Coxon.
Yeah, I know you wanted to interject something. Yeah.
I was trying to hold my thought. It's interesting to see where hip hop is right now and the impact as we see them run parallel, reggae versus hip hop. And did they intersect or cross over into one another, or were they completely separate genres of music? One thing I remember when we were growing up was you would always see a lot of reggae singers steal R&B music, you know, and you can't deny that. Sanchez, all of them. I mean, it was in Jamaica. Jamaicans called pirating.
Yeah, yeah.
But they would pirate and bring it over, and it would become
And
a
they
hit.
and it would be hot too.
It would be
the
hot.
singers
No,
Frankie
in the
Paul
dance hall.
back in the '80s. You know,
Yeah,
like
in
you
the
said,
dance
Sanchez singing melody. Yeah.
In the dance hall, it was very well known, and it was very common to do so, and not even bat an eye at it. So yeah, I acknowledge the I don't want to call it borrowing. You have to call it stealing part. But the stealing became almost like it was, well, I'm just borrowing it, you know, and then it became a hit on this side, on that genre of music. But definitely, I would say foundational Black Americans have the inception of it. They put the ingredients into it, and then others came and added on to what the ingredients were, blended in. And I think the anger comes that they see quote unquote West Indians or the reggae movement taking claim to it. I think that's where where the disdain comes and it starts to happen. I love both music, as you know. You know, me, I started out reggae. My father played it, roots reggae. Him, my uncle Harry. Then I got introduced by my cousin June to hip hop really in '84. Now I rock both, but I'm really a hip hop head. I love hip hop. Right? And the impact, the influence that it had on the man that I became. Now, how do they settle this? I see Lord Jamar wants to debate all the big heads, you know, the KRSs, all the people who's involved in making claims. Fat Joe, Crazy Legs.
Yeah.
He's calling them all to the forefront. And can they sit down and have a civil discussion of the timeline of what was introduced at what time and who introduced it, and the impact that it had in that era and how it snowballed into where we are now? Can they sit together and do that? That is the big question. And
I was gonna say real quick as far as like with the Puerto Ricans, another thing that I recently, you know, like they used to do what they will call up rock, you know, dancing. You know, this is back during I want to say the late '70s. I think I seen some of the videos they was talking about it. But of course, the breakdancing part, the going down to the floor, eventually it was like it was one thing, and then eventually it came together where you up on the, you know, doing this, and then boom, you go down on the floor, and you always finish on the floor. You know what I'm saying? And
windmill headspins.
Right. So they were kind of saying like, you know, oh, you know, we kind of incorporated that. We brought the up rock because Puerto Ricans, we was already standing up doing the up rock thing.
Right.
So, you know, but again, I think it's a debate that's not really going to be hard at all. I mean, but me personally, because with the videos and the footage and the stuff that brothers have recently, you know, surfaced, that movie that Tariq Nasheed did, you know, that Microphone Check movie, he had so many clips and so many, you know, that was like, wow. You know, and again, when you look at that, at the end of that, you say to yourself, what did they really bring? Because it's like, you know, we're showing you stuff from 1940, 1960. And at the end of the day, we know all of the islands, Caribbean islands or whatever, Hispanic, they all, Black American. You were listening to our music. In the 1940s, who you was listening to? Black Americans on the radio. When ever since it was a radio, who was you listening to? So it's an argument that's not even really hard to have. You know what I'm saying? Once the facts are all laid down on the table. You know. Did you see, I was going to ask you, it was a bill with Professor Griff, and he talked about, of course, he touched on it as well. And I kind of like the response that he gave, because it was kind of similar to what I was saying about just black people in general on the planet, and the whole frequency or the rhythmic vibe within black people to express themselves in that cultural type of way. You know, whether it be music, art, you know, poetry, expression, whatever. But of course, black people that are oppressed or are held down, of course, with that group, you usually see those qualities more in that group of people that are being oppressed or downtrodden. I don't know if you've seen that bill that Professor Griff did, but I thought that was a real powerful, you know, what would you say in terms of that? Just in general, black people on the planet.
So the bigger the oppression, the more creative we become. We have a higher propensity to create, and we create through the art of expression. And hip hop is a serious form of expressing oneself.
Right.
What a time to be alive. What a time to be born. The time we were born, to see the things that we've seen in hip hop in its evolution from where it came to where it's at now.
Yeah.
And so the bigger the oppression, the deeper we dig down into the being to pull out that oppressive opposite polarity, opposite push toward the oppression. And so it becomes very creative, and then it spreads like wildfire. I mean, hip-hop is known globally right now.
Right.
So we have to shout out the roots of who started it.
Yeah.
You know, the foundational Black Americans that definitely put the nucleus and the ingredients inside the gumbo and stirred it around and gave everyone else a formula to follow.
And that's like with all things, even in religion or whatever, you know, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, you know, the light of Islam would go out in the east and eventually rise in the west in the latter days. Well, he knew that the people in the west in the latter days were going to be a special people, you know what I'm saying, that were so badly broken away from their name, culture, language, God, religion, that the best of information, the best of God's knowledge is going to come out of that group of people, you know.
Right.
You know, so yeah, true indeed. So yeah, I mean, you know, as we close, man, I mean, just the narrative is being changed. You know, I mean, it's not just the Bronx. One thing we can credit the Bronx for, or Kool Herc, is that they put all of the elements together.
Right.
This is my, you know, you could disagree, but I think that's the only thing we could probably at this point give Kool Herc or Bronx credit for. They put all of those elements together, but there's factual information that proves that they were doing hip hop in Queens. 1969, as early as 1969, 1970, 1971. In Brooklyn, 1971, 72. This is documented. So, you know, by the time the Bronx got it in 75, 76, I think they say the Bronx got, you know, by now everything, all of those elements was, you know, put together. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the bigger question is, did the Bronx get it when the cameras rolled in? You know, because the cameras rolled in at a certain point, and then they gave it. Was it just give it to them at that time? I'm posing questions. I'm not saying right.
That's a good question.
You know, so or were Brooklyn and Queens already rocking, but the cameras weren't there at that time, and then when the cameras came in, did Kool Herc get the credit at that time? I don't know. 49 years old, I'm 75, baby. So it's just questions that I'm posing because I speak to a lot of elders who's really in the game and who really has timelines that it's kind of hard to debate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
pretty strong evidence.
Evidence.
The only thing I would say to that is, you know, what about flyers or any type of thing that people in the Bronx would have had back in 1969, 1970, during the time of the Black Spades and all of that, where they was throwing disco jams. Because we know, again, Queens had disco jams. They just call it hip hop. So disco jams, you know, those DJs, Flowers, Grandmaster Flowers, there was disco DJs. But they was doing hip hop. It just wasn't called that.
Right.
So yeah, you know, if they have any type of, you know, paraphernalia or any type of memorabilia, if you will, that could show, you know what I mean, look, he was performing, look, you know, like, you know, we got to go with what the information right now is, you know.
Divine and them definitely have flyers that even go back past 73.
Yeah.
So this is why I pose questions of what I was told.
Right.
Versus what is the real narrative of this, you know? And it's not a thing to debate or become egotistical. We're just trying to get the facts down. Right.
And I was just gonna say too, like in the early 70s, you know, like in the 80s, do you see the camaraderie between Black, Puerto Rican, or, you know, West Indian Americans, foundational Black Americans? But in the 1970s, that wasn't there. But a lot of them act like it was. A lot of the Hispanic, but it really, because I can remember as a kid, it wasn't. Puerto Rican, when they first, you know, in West Indian, they used to stay within their circles. The intermingling didn't start until like late 70s now, going into the 80s now. They showed a party with Fat Joe at a party. He says 50-50, but he's the only Spanish kid in the party standing up against the wall in the back of the party looking around. Or you see out there is black kids dancing, teenagers, dancing Fat Joe.
You know what it is? Culture is a program. Hip hop allowed the programs to merge and integrate together.
Right.
And then when the integration happened,
Video and camera. Right along
and
with,
then
with it.
those who integrated started to take claim.
Right.
And this is where we are now. So we're trying to unintegrate and figure out who
did what,
contributed what, and then who may have came and seen the contribution and then took it and ran with it and then took claim. This is where we are right now. But I'm a seeker of truth. I'm not into opinions and beliefs, and so I love hip hop, man. I love hip hop. I don't know where I would be without it, but I understand the plight of the claim thing and who was there from the inception, who are the real creators of it. So it would be interesting, Tariq Nasheed, Lord Jamal and them, bringing those heads that are making these claims and just having a civil debate, not a yell out, not name calling. It would be good to see that, and also to bring those infinity sounds with my man Divine and them, bring them to the table as well, Uncle Ralph and all of them, and let them put their input, because these are elders. You have to listen to the elders. If you wasn't 14, 15 years old when the inception of this stuff happened, you're not cognizant enough to really. What you're doing is you're galvanizing information, just like me. You're too
like
young.
Me. Yeah, like me.
So
we just went with the narrative we always heard until now. Within the last 5 years, and I'm from New York, and it's like a lot of this I'm just learning within the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So
so that's what seekers of truth do. You try to figure out not opinions, but what was the actual data and intel that aligns with truth, and what led up to where we are now, to debunk, false claims. Because there are creators to this, and they put those ingredients in there, and that's what we're trying to find out.
True indeed. Like I said, man, we're going to get to the bottom of it, inshallah, but at the end of the day, it's all love. We love our West Indian brethren, you know what I'm saying? We love our Hispanic brethren,
It's all one love.
One love, one blood, one unity, you know what I'm saying? So that's how it is.
Remember, culture is a program. You took on the program of the region you're born in. One program is not better than the other. I don't buy into any of that, because it's the person that's expressing it. They can express it good or they can express it real bad. So I'm not into one program is better than the other. The practitioner is always better than the actual art. The art's not better than the practitioner. That's Bruce Lee.
I was just getting ready to say that.
Yeah,
that's what I was just about to say.
So it's no different with cultures. You take on your brain has to take on a program, an operating system, and he has an operating system, and y'all just expressing through the operating system. But ultimately, all these operating systems contributed to hip hop, but one was there first, and that's all we say.
Yeah. So, with that being said, my people, my friends, at the end of the day, we got to be like water. Yeah, right?
That part.
You know what I'm saying? So, y'all stay tuned, man. We going to keep y'all posted or whatever. Hopefully, they'll get this film out and, we can, get to the bottom of this thing. So, with that being said, I leave the brotherhood as I came in the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace to God.
Peace to the gods, peace to the earths, and all of the righteous families of the planet. Peace.
Peace.